Training camp in Oxnard has come to an end. The preseason, just 3 weeks of exhilarating football, has sadly come to an end, which means it was about time for the Cowboys to cut down to 53 players on the roster. 90 down to 53, and honestly, I was surprised with where they went at some of these positions, so let's look at who they kept, who they cut. Let's get into the video. In the quarterback room, I think it was pretty standard stuff. Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance. I know some people are going to look at this and say, why are you keeping Trey Lance? He threw 5 interceptions. And it really comes down to the draft capital. They spent a 4th round pick on him and the guaranteed money off the back end of his rookie deal. Now, the Cowboys obviously didn't pick up Lance's 5th-year option, but I was kind of going into this training camp and preseason with the idea that Lance would be on this team. I believe he had around $4 million in guarantees. The Cowboys are going to keep him around in case he is needed. And then obviously Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, 2 guys that we knew for sure were going to be on this team. In the running back room, really no surprises here either. Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, and then at fullback / halfback, Hunter Lipke. On my 53-man roster prediction, I had the Cowboys keeping 5 and maybe finding a way to get Royce Freeman on the 53, but they didn't do that, and still, I'm not really surprised. I thought going into training camp, because as you guys know, I'm a big Deuce Vaughn fan, that this was your best 4 and your best chance at having a good running back room in 2024. I like Deuce Vaughn. I thought he showed some really nice things in the preseason, both running the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield. Rico Dowdle is your best running back right now, and Ezekiel Elliott, he was just, he was going to make the team. And Mike McCarthy loves his fullback, so Hunter Lipke was a lock. I don't think we saw him play at all during the preseason. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't believe Hunter Lipke got a single carry or snap, so he's been a roster lock ever since training camp / the preseason started. I promise, guys, we're going to talk about a position that had some surprises, but not for the wide receiver room. I thought that these 6, Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy, and Kevontae Turpin were your best 6 wide receivers. At one point during training camp, I know I thought, and maybe others, that Jalen Cropper could maybe fight his way onto this roster and make the Cowboys cut one of Ryan Flournoy or Jalen Brooks, but as the preseason games went on, it was very apparent that Flournoy needed to be on the roster. Jalen Brooks got a little bit of run during the preseason, but not a whole lot. Kevontae Turpin, we didn't see at all, so I assumed that he was safe. And then obviously Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb are going to be your top 3 wideouts going into the season. And I'm actually really excited about that trio of guys. Jalen Tolbert really stepped it up throughout training camp. He didn't get to see a whole lot of work during the preseason, but overall, I think that he's a very well-rounded wide receiver 3. And then behind him, I like Brooks and Flournoy as well. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I think Flournoy could make some noise as a rookie if given the opportunities. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, BetUS. If you're looking for the best odds for the NFL season, Cowboys futures, live in-game betting, whatever you need, BetUS has you covered. They have huge bonuses, great odds, and fast payouts. Plus, new customers get a 125% sign-up bonus on their first 3 deposits. Deposit $20, get $25 more to play with. The link to sign up is in the description of today's video. Now, let's head over to the tight end room, where they kept Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, John Stevens Jr., and Brevin Spann-Ford. The first 3 guys are the guys that I had on my roster projection: Ferguson, Schoonmaker, and Stevens. Ferguson is clearly your tight end 1 by 1.5 miles. Schoonmaker is a 2nd-round pick, so he's got a little bit of pedigree behind keeping him on the 53, although I think he can do a little bit of blocking and pass catching stuff. And then John Stevens Jr. is your pass catching upside tight end, maybe not as good of a blocker. And then on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, you have Brevin Spann-Ford, who is a blocker and not near as good of a receiver as John Stevens. I thought it was a possibility that the Cowboys would only keep 3 of these guys, but now that I'm kind of going over the roster, I understand the idea of keeping two guys with two completely different skill sets. I thought maybe that Hunter Lipke would kind of push Brevin Spanford off the 53 because of what he can do as a kind of fullback / tight end, blocking in the run game, catching the ball out of the backfield, stuff like that. But I like the idea. I like what they're trying to do in their tight end room. And I am a huge John Stevens Jr. believer. I think that he could be really, really useful down in the red zone. I think he's better than Luke Schoonmaker, and hopefully he gets some opportunities this year, but I really like this room as well. For the offensive line, it was pretty typical. The Cowboys kept Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Zach Martin, Brock Hoffman, Terrence Steele, TJ Bass, Awesome Richards, Matt Waletzko, and Chuma Edoga. Kind of what I expected. Chuma Edoga had the foot injury in the preseason. He will go to IR. I thought that there was maybe a chance that the Cowboys would feel comfortable moving on from Chuma Edoga if they liked other guys on the roster, but that doesn't seem to be the case. What surprised me the most was Matt Waletzko. Not really as much because he made the roster. I thought that Josh Ball played well throughout the preseason. He had a good training camp. He was one of PFF's highest graded offensive linemen, and I'm surprised that they kept Waletzko over Josh Ball. So for Chuma Edoga, he'll go to IR. CeeDee Lamb will come off of the exempt list, did not show up to camp after signing his new deal. For Josh Ball, I just think it's so weird how the Cowboys kept him around when he was absolutely terrible, but when he started to show a little bit of upside, they just cut him, I guess. Overall, I like the Cowboys' depth at offensive line. You guys got to remember, super hard to find good offensive linemen in the NFL. I think if Brock Hoffman had to play a game or two, he would be good. TJ Bass, Awesome Richards. I'm a little shaky on Matt Waletzko, but overall, I do like this offensive line room. Now, let's head over to the defensive line, where the Cowboys kept Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Marshawn Nealon, Tyrus Wheat, Osa Odigizua, Mozzie Smith, Chauncey Golston, Jordan Phillips, and Linval Joseph. A surprising name that got cut was Carl Lawson, the defensive end that the Cowboys just signed literally a week ago. Now, apparently there were reports that his cardio is not where it needs to be, and the Cowboys would like to bring him back on the practice squad, hoping he can kind of get in shape, and if they need to call him up for a game day, then that would be an option. A name that I wanted to see on the 53-man roster, and that was Justin Rogers, the Cowboys' 7th round pick. I kind of noticed him flashing through some of the preseason games. Now, was he perfect? Was he a completely ready-to-go made prospect? No. But obviously the Cowboys didn't feel comfortable rolling with him into the season. That's why they signed Jordan Phillips and Linval Joseph, some veteran experience, some bodies with actual snaps at the position. Maybe Justin Rogers can come back to this team on the practice squad and potentially make his way onto the roster next year. Continuing on, let's get to the linebacker room. Much like the other ones, pretty typical, especially the top 4 spots. Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, Maris Luafau, Damone Clark. But number 5, and a guy that I had on my 53 prediction, was Buddy Johnson. I like that he made this team. The Cowboys moved on from guys like Willie Harvey Jr. and chose to keep Johnson. He's going to have some special team stuff that he can do. He flashed a good bit during the preseason, especially later in games. And overall, I think he was just more consistent, better gaps, better run fill stuff. I thought Buddy Johnson deserved to make the team. On to the cornerback room. Trayvon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, Kalen Carson, Andrew Booth, and Israel Mukuamu. Obviously, Deron Bland is not on here because of the 6 to 8 week injury. That's going to force him to miss a couple of games to start the year. Overall, the Cowboys kept 5 guys. Maybe I'm a little surprised to see Andrew Booth over a guy like Keemon Hall that I thought showed some good things during the preseason, but overall, Booth has the pedigree. I think that Mike Zimmer likes him as a player. He didn't have the best preseason, but he had his ups and downs, especially tackling ball carriers. But I can't say that I'm mad at this cornerback room. I'm just excited to see what Kalen Carson and Trayvon Diggs can do. And when I say excited, I mean extremely nervous. But overall, on the 53-man roster, I'm not very surprised with what the Cowboys decided to do. And then at safety, Donovan Wilson, Malik Hooker, Marquise Bell, and Wanye Thomas. Wanye Thomas is a player that I cannot wait to see in 2024. Hopefully he can get out of the doghouse. I don't know what was going on with Dan Quinn, but Thomas did not get to see the field all that much over guys like Donovan Wilson or Malik Hooker. So hopefully Thomas can find his way onto the field consistently this coming season, but no surprises in the safety room either. And then the specialists, the Cowboys cut Brandon. No, I'm just kidding. You have Brandon Aubrey, Brian Anger, Trent Sieg, and CJ Goodwin, your special teams specialist. Somebody that I initially kept off of my 53, which probably wasn't a good idea because we should have bet on him making the team. Once again, John Fossil gets one or two guys that he wants on the team, special teams guys, somebody that can help this unit. This is a three-phase game that a lot of people tend to forget about when you're adding a cornerback that doesn't really play corner. He's pretty much just a special team guy. But when he's keeping teams from getting 30, 40, 50-yard returns, you'll be thankful that he made the 53-man roster. But what do you guys think? What was the biggest surprise? I think for me, Tyrus Wheat, maybe Andrew Booth Jr., Keemon Hall would have been an interesting name if he made the 53-man roster. Buddy Johnson was a nice surprise, and Matt Waletzko was a surprise. Overall, I think the Cowboys did really well with this 53. I want you guys to comment your thoughts down below, and that's all I got today. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.